Imagine this. It's a bustling afternoon in the heart of Tokyo, inside the gleaming headquarters of Nihon Tech Innovations, one of Japan's leading corporations in cutting-edge electronics. The lobby is alive with the hum of employees rushing to meetings, their polished shoes clicking against the marble floors that reflect the harsh fluorescent lights overhead. But right there, in the middle of it all, a group of mid-level managers, sharp-suited men and women with clipboards and coffee cups, stand laughing as they deliberately knock over a trash bin. Coffee grounds, crumpled papers, sticky wrappers, and even half-eaten bento boxes spill out in a messy heap, spreading across the floor like a deliberate trap. And who do they call to clean it up? Zara Thompson, the black woman who's been mopping these halls for the past 2 years. Zara, with her warm brown skin glowing under the artificial lights despite the exhaustion etched into her features, pushes her cleaning cart forward. She's in her mid-40s, her natural coils tied back in a neat bun under a company-issued cap, her uniform, a plain blue jumpsuit, stained from the day's endless tasks. She moves with a quiet grace, her dark eyes steady, but inside, her heart pounds with a mix of frustration and resolve. "Clean it up, monkey girl," one of the managers sneers, his voice loud enough to draw stares from passing colleagues. The others chuckle, one woman pointing and whispering, "Look at her, acting like she belongs here. Go back to where you came from, Africa or whatever jungle." The words hit Zara like a physical slap, stinging her cheeks with heat. She kneels down, the cold floor biting into her knees through the thin fabric, and starts picking up the trash piece by piece. The smell of rotting food mixes with the sharp tang of spilled coffee, making her stomach churn. Around her a small crowd gathers, some filming on their phones, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. No one helps, no one stops them. This is just another day for Zara. Let me take you back a bit, friends, because to understand the weight of this moment, you need to know how Zara ended up here. She arrived in Japan 3 years ago, chasing what she hoped would be a new beginning. Back home in the States, life had thrown her curveballs, a divorce that left her financially drained, and the loss of her prestigious job due to budget cuts in the international sector. Zara wasn't always a janitor. She had dreams, skills, a life full of purpose. But visas and opportunities in Tokyo led her to this entry-level position at Nihon Tech. The company promised stability, a chance to rebuild. What it didn't promise was the isolation, the subtle and not-so-subtle barriers that came with being the only black woman in a sea of uniformity. From day one, the stares were constant. In the elevator, colleagues would shift away, clutching their bags tighter, as if her presence alone was a threat. "You smell different," a coworker once said during her first week, wrinkling her nose in the break room. Zara had smiled politely then, explaining it was just her shea butter lotion, a small piece of home she carried with her. But that smile faded over time as the comments grew bolder. Her supervisor, Mr. Sato, a stern man with a perpetual frown, would assign her the dirtiest tasks, scrubbing toilets during peak hours when employees walked in and out, mocking her efforts. "Faster, Zara-san," he'd bark, using the honorific like a weapon. "Or are you too lazy? I heard people like you don't work hard." The "people like you" always hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Black, foreign, different. It wasn't just words, though. The physical toll built up slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. One morning, early in her tenure, Zara was mopping the cafeteria after lunch rush. A group of young engineers, fresh from university and full of entitlement, decided to help by tossing their leftover ramen noodles onto the wet floor. "Oops," one laughed, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Clean that up, darky." The slur cut deep, but Zara bit her tongue, knowing complaints would only label her as troublesome. She spent an extra hour on her hands and knees, the hot broth soaking into her gloves, the laughter of the group fading as they walked away unscathed. No HR intervention, no apologies, Just another incident swept under the rug. As weeks turned to months, the bullying escalated in ways that chipped away at her spirit. Whispers in the hallways turned to outright exclusion. At company potlucks, her dishes, simple recipes from her Ghanaian roots, like jollof rice, were pushed to the end of the table, untouched, while snide remarks floated around. "Who wants to eat that? It looks dirty." Zara would eat alone in the storage closet, the fluorescent buzz overhead her only company, tears mixing with her meal as she reminded herself why she stayed. For the paycheck, for the hope that things might change. But change? It seemed impossible. The managers, emboldened by the lack of consequences, pushed further. One particularly grueling day, after Zara had politely asked a colleague not to track mud through her freshly mopped corridor, the response was swift and cruel. "Who do you think you are, talking back?" the man snapped, his face reddening. He grabbed her arm, not hard enough to bruise but firm enough to startle, and shoved her toward the supply closet. "Stay in your lane." That shove sent a jolt through her body, her shoulder aching for days, but she didn't report it. Who would believe her over him? The tension built like a pressure cooker, small acts compounding into something unbearable. Colleagues would accidentally bump into her cart, scattering supplies, then blame her clumsiness. Clumsy like an elephant, they'd say, invoking stereotypes that made Zara's blood boil. She'd clench her fists, nails digging into her palms, forcing a neutral expression. Inside, though, memories flashed. Her time at Georgetown University, earning her PhD in linguistics, traveling the world as a diplomat for the United Nations, negotiating in boardrooms where her voice commanded respect. How had she fallen so far? But she pushed those thoughts down, focusing on survival. Rent in Tokyo wasn't cheap, and her family back home depended on the wire transfers she sent monthly. Then came the nights. Overtime was mandatory for Zara, unlike her peers. "You don't have a family here, right? So you can stay late," Mr. Sato would say, piling on tasks like emptying every trash bin in the 20-story building after hours. The office would empty, leaving her in echoing silence, the city lights twinkling outside like distant stars. It was during these lonely shifts that the worst happened. One evening, after a long day of scrubbing conference rooms, Zara overheard a group of supervisors in the break area. "That black cleaner thinks she's part of the team," one laughed. "Let's remind her." They waited until she entered the women's restroom to wash up, then jammed the door from outside with a chair, effectively locking her in. "Stay there until you learn your place," they shouted through the door, their voices muffled but triumphant. Panic rose in Zara's chest. The small space closing in, the tile cold under her feet, the faint smell of bleach overwhelming. She banged on the door, her voice echoing in the confined room. "Let me out! This isn't funny!" But their footsteps faded, leaving her trapped in the dim light, heart racing, humiliation burning like fire. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, knees drawn up, trying to steady her breathing. This wasn't just bullying, it was dehumanizing, a deliberate act to break her. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered to herself, "You're stronger than this. Remember who you are." In those moments, fragments of her past surfaced. Conferences in Geneva, translating for world leaders in 9 languages, her expertise turning tides in negotiations. But here, in this locked bathroom, that life felt like a dream, distant and unreachable. As the minutes ticked by, turning into what felt like hours, the building grew quieter. Zara strained her ears, hoping someone would come. And that's when she heard it. Voices from the adjacent executive boardroom, filtering through the thin wall. Mr. Tanaka, the CEO, a respected figure in his 60s, known for his no-nonsense demeanor and traditional values, was on a speakerphone, his voice laced with desperation. "We cannot lose this deal," he said in Japanese, his words clipped and urgent. The $1 billion contract with American and French partners was crumbling, all because of language barriers. Mr. Tanaka's English was rudimentary, his French non-existent, and the interpreters were unavailable. "They'll walk away," he muttered, pacing audible through the wall. "Everything we've built." Zara froze, her own predicament forgotten for a moment. She understood every word, her fluency in Japanese, honed from years abroad, making the crisis crystal clear. The partners were demanding clarifications in English and French, technical terms flying back and forth, and Mr. Tanaka was floundering, his frustration mounting. No, wait," he stammered into the phone, but the line went silent, the deal hanging by a thread. Her mind raced. Should she intervene? After everything, the insults, the shoves, the lock-ins, why help? But something deeper stirred, a sense of duty, the knowledge that she could make a difference. She banged on the door again, louder this time, her voice steady despite the fear. "Help! Someone, please!" The door finally rattled open, not from her tormentors, but from a night security guard making rounds. Mr. Kimura, an older man with kind eyes, frowned as he saw her. "Zara-san? What happened?" He helped her up, his touch gentle, a rare act of humanity in this cold place. She brushed off her uniform, composing herself. "Just a prank," she lied softly, not wanting to escalate. But inside, resolve hardened. The overheard conversation burned in her mind, the company's future teetering, and her, the invisible janitor, holding a key no one knew about. The next morning dawned gray over Tokyo, the city awakening with its usual frenzy. Zara arrived early, her body aching from the previous night's ordeal, but her spirit unbroken. The lobby was spotless, her handiwork from overtime, but the memories lingered like shadows. As she started her rounds, pushing the cart down the pristine hallways, the subtle discriminations resumed. A secretary glanced up from her desk, her lips curling in disdain. "Don't miss the corners, okay? We don't want the place looking unkempt." The implication hung heavy, like you. Zara nodded, moving on, but the weight pressed down. In the elevator, crammed with suits, a businessman accidentally elbowed her, muttering, "Watch where you're going." No apology, just a smirk shared with his companion. She exited on the executive floor, where the air felt thicker, charged with power dynamics. Here, the bullying took a more insidious form. Executives like Ms. Hayashi, the HR director, would summon her for menial tasks during meetings, making her wait outside like a servant. "Fetch water," she'd command, snapping her fingers while discussing diversity policies that clearly didn't apply to Zara. By mid-morning, the escalations hit harder. In the main conference room, after a team briefing, the floor was littered with discarded notes and coffee cups, deliberately left for her. As Zara bent to clean, one lingering manager, Mr. Nakamura, kicked a cup toward her. "Hurry up! We have real work to do." His tone dripped with contempt, and when she straightened, he blocked her path, towering over her. "You think complaining will help? This is Japan. Adapt or leave." The threat was veiled, but the shove that followed wasn't. He pushed her shoulder, sending her stumbling back into her cart. Pain shot through her arm, but worse was the public spectacle. Other employees peeking in, whispering, some chuckling nervously. Zara's breath caught, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. "Please, stop," she said quietly, her voice trembling but firm. It was the first time she'd spoken up that day, and it ignited something. Mr. Nakamura's face twisted. "Insolent!" He grabbed her wrist, yanking her toward the door. "Out! And think about your attitude." The physical aggression left her reeling, her skin burning where he'd touched. Outside, in the hallway, a small group had gathered, pointing and murmuring. "She's always causing trouble," one said loudly. "Black people are so aggressive." The humiliation peaked as Zara retreated to the restroom, the same one from last night, to compose herself. Splashing water on her face, she stared at her reflection. Strong features, eyes full of fire, but shadowed by weariness. "You can do this," she whispered. But deep down, the constant barrage wore on her, each insult a cut, each shove a bruise on her soul. As lunch hour approached, the office buzzed with energy, but for Zara, it meant more isolation. In the cafeteria, trays clattered, conversations flowed in rapid Japanese, but no one invited her to sit. She grabbed a quick bite in the corner, overhearing snippets. "The big deal with the Americans and French is falling apart. Tanaka-san's in trouble." Her ears perked up, connecting to the overheard crisis. The $1 billion merger, pivotal for Nihon Tech's expansion into global markets, was unraveling due to miscommunications. Afternoon brought no relief. Assigned to clean the executive suites, Zara navigated the opulent spaces, plush carpets, panoramic views, feeling like an intruder. Mr. Tanaka's office was empty, but echoes of his stress lingered. As she dusted, a colleague burst in, dumping a pile of shredded papers on the floor. "Clean this too," he sneered, "and make it quick, foreigner." The word foreigner spat like venom, followed by a mocking imitation of her accent. By late afternoon, the pattern repeated. Another accidental spill in the lobby, this time soda sticky underfoot. As Zara mopped, a crowd formed again, phones out. "Dance while you clean," someone jeered. The laughter swelled, a wave of mockery crashing over her. She felt exposed, vulnerable, the weight of their gazes pressing down. But as the day wound down, the real turning point loomed. Overtime again. Mr. Sato's orders. "Stay until it's spotless," he barked. Alone in the dimming building, Zara headed to the restrooms near the boardroom. And that's when it happened. A group of her usual tormentors, lingering after hours, spotted her. "Time for another lesson," one said, shoving her inside the bathroom. The door slammed shut, locked from outside with a broom handle. "Reflect on your place," they called, their voices fading with footsteps. Trapped once more, darkness closing in, Zara slid to the floor, fighting panic. Air was stale, her breathing shallow, but through the wall, Mr. Tanaka's voice rose again, another urgent call. "We need to clarify the terms, but I don't understand their French proposals." His desperation was palpable, the deal slipping away. Zara's heart raced. This was it, the moment where everything could change. She pounded on the door, calling out. But for now, silence answered. What would happen next? Would anyone hear her? Or would this be another night of unseen suffering? The lock-in dragged on, each minute stretching like eternity. Zara's mind wandered to her life before this. Diplomatic summits, where her command of languages bridged divides. Arabic in the Middle East, Spanish in Latin America, Mandarin in Asia. She'd mastered them all, 9 in total, turning chaos into consensus. But here, those skills were buried under layers of prejudice. Finally, a janitorial colleague, another outsider, a quiet Filipino man named Raul, heard her knocks and freed her. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern in his eyes. Zara nodded, thanking him, but her focus shifted. The boardroom light was still on, Mr. Tanaka's crisis ongoing. She hesitated at the door, hand raised to knock. But memories of the day's humiliations flooded back. The shoves, the slurs, the laughter. Why risk more rejection? Yet something pulled her forward. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer, the weight of her hidden past ready to surface. As the door to the boardroom loomed before her, Zara's hand trembled slightly in the dim, after-hours lighting of the hallway. The sleek glass panels reflected her weary face back at her, eyes shadowed by fatigue but burning with a quiet fire. She could still hear Mr. Tanaka's voice inside, now raised in frustration over the phone, switching between broken English and rapid Japanese as he tried to salvage the crumbling deal. "No, wait. Clarify the clause on intellectual property," he stammered, his words mangled by the language barrier. The French partner's response came back sharp and impatient, a flurry of words that left Tanaka silent, defeated. Zara knew she could bridge that gap. She'd done it before in rooms far more intimidating than this. But after the lock-in, the shoves, the endless slurs, did she owe this company anything? Her pulse quickened. With a deep breath, she knocked softly, the sound echoing like a challenge in the empty corridor. The door swung open abruptly, and there stood Mr. Tanaka, his tie loosened, face flushed with stress. His sharp eyes narrowed at the sight of her, a janitor, uniform rumpled, intruding on his crisis. "What do you want?" he snapped in Japanese, his tone laced with irritation. "This is not the time for cleaning." Zara stood her ground, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Mr. Tanaka, I overheard your call. I can help with the languages, the English and French. I speak them fluently, along with others." The words hung in the air, simple and direct, but they might as well have been a bomb. Tanaka's expression shifted from annoyance to outright disbelief, then contempt. He laughed, a short, harsh bark that made Zara flinch inwardly. "You? A cleaner? Don't waste my time. Go back to your mop." He waved her away like swatting a fly, turning back to his desk. But Zara didn't move. The dismissal stung, echoing all the times she'd been pushed aside that day. "Please, sir. The deal is falling apart because of the miscommunications. I can translate accurately. Technical terms, cultural nuances. Let me prove it." Tanaka whirled back, his face darkening. "Who do you think you are? Barging in here like you belong? People like you should know your place." The slur was implicit, his gaze raking over her skin, her uniform, as if she were an intruder in his world. He stepped closer, invading her space, his finger jabbing toward the door. "Get out before I call security. This is a billion-dollar merger, not some charity for foreigners." The words hit like a slap, but Zara held her chin high, her heart pounding. Security, two burly guards appeared at his summons, their hands rough as they grabbed her arms, dragging her back into the hallway. "Troublemaker," one muttered, shoving her against the wall hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. The door slammed shut, leaving her alone in the corridor, humiliated yet again. Pain radiated from her shoulder where the guard had gripped too tightly, but it was the rejection that burned deepest. Zara slid down the wall, hugging her knees, the cold floor seeping through her clothes. How many times could she endure this? The lock-ins, the spills, the constant reminders that she was less than. Tears welled up, hot and unbidden, as flashes of the day's torments replayed. The soda sticky under her knees in the lobby, the crowd's laughter like knives, Mr. Nakamura's bruising yank on her wrist. Insolent, he'd called her, as if speaking up was a crime. And now, even offering help got her treated like dirt. But beneath the hurt, a spark of resilience flickered. She wiped her eyes, standing slowly. This wasn't over. The deal was too important. The company's survival hung on it, and so did jobs, including hers. The next day broke with relentless routine, but the air at Nihon Tech felt thicker, charged with unspoken tension. Whispers rippled through the offices. The merger was teetering, partners demanding an in-person meeting tomorrow, and Tanaka was scrambling. Zara pushed her cart through the halls, her body sore from the previous night's manhandling, but her mind sharp. Colleagues avoided her eyes, but the bullying didn't pause. In the break room, as she emptied bins, a cluster of secretaries blocked her path. "Heard you tried to play hero last night," one sneered, her voice dripping sarcasm. "Stay in the shadows where you belong." They, accidentally, knocked over a stack of cups, hot tea splashing across Zara's shoes, scalding her skin through the fabric. She gasped, the burn immediate and sharp, but they just laughed, one filming the mishap. "Look at her jump, like a scared animal." The public mockery drew more onlookers, their whispers turning to chuckles, phones capturing her humiliation. Zara bit her lip, fighting the urge to snap back, and knelt to clean the mess, the tea's bitter scent mixing with her rising anger. Her feet throbbed, but she forced composure, reminding herself of her worth. Inside, though, doubts crept in. Was this all she'd ever be? A target for their cruelty? As she moved to the cafeteria for lunch cleanup, the escalation continued. A group of engineers, the same ones from before, dumped their trays on the floor deliberately. "Oops," the leader said with a grin, kicking a plate toward her. "Clean it, quick, before it stains your kind of floor." The racial jab landed hard, and when Zara straightened to protest, "This isn't right," he shoved her shoulder, sending her stumbling. "Don't talk back, or we'll make sure you regret it." The crowd around them murmured approval, no one intervening, the humiliation peaking as tears pricked her eyes again. Escaping to a quiet storage room, Zara leaned against shelves of supplies, her breathing ragged. The physical aggressions, the shoves, the burns, were bad enough, but the constant verbal daggers eroded her soul. People like you, foreigner, animal, each one a reminder of her otherness. Yet, in these moments of solitude, her inner strength surfaced. She thought of her UN days, negotiating peace accords in Arabic during Middle East summits, bridging French diplomats in Geneva, even handling tense Mandarin talks in Beijing. 9 languages, each a tool she'd honed through rigorous study and real-world immersion. Her PhD thesis on cross-cultural linguistics had been praised in academic circles, but now, reduced to this, scrubbing floors while hiding her brilliance. "I am more than this," she whispered, clenching her fists. A small act of solidarity came unexpectedly. Raoul, the night guard from before, slipped her a note during her rounds. "I saw what happened. You're brave. Hang in there." It was a flicker of humanity in the storm, reminding her not everyone was cruel. But the crisis at the top was boiling over, pulling Zara back in. Overhearing snippets in the elevators. "Tanaka-san's losing it. Partners arrive early tomorrow." She knew time was short. That afternoon, during executive floor cleanup, she positioned herself near Tanaka's office. The door was ajar, his voice strained on another call. "We need to reschedule. No, they insist on French for the patents." Panic laced his words. The deal's technical details were lost in translation, partners threatening to pull out. Zara's heart ached, not for him, but for the ripple effects. Layoffs, families affected. Gathering her courage, she knocked again, stepping in despite the risk. Tanaka looked up, exhausted, but his face hardened at her sight. "You again? I told you to leave me alone." He rose, pointing accusingly. "Are you spying? Security!" The guards returned, one cuffing her arm roughly, twisting it behind her back in a hold that sent sharp pains shooting up her spine. "She's harassing me," Tanaka claimed, his voice cold. Zara winced, but spoke through the discomfort. "Sir, please, just listen. I can demonstrate. Let me translate a sample from your notes." The guard tightened his grip, a symbolic attack that left her feeling powerless, exposed. Tanaka hesitated, doubt flickering, but contempt won. Ridiculous. A janitor knowing French? English fine, maybe, but this is business. Get her out. They dragged her to the hallway, one shoving her against the elevator doors, her head thunking painfully. "Stay away, or you're fired," he growled. The rejection crushed her, tears flowing freely now as she rode the elevator down. Humiliation washed over her in waves, the physical manhandling, the public dismissal. In the lobby, colleagues stared, whispers spreading. The cleaner thinks she's executive material. Laughter followed her out the doors into the Tokyo twilight, the city lights blurring through her tears. Yet resilience burned brighter. That evening, at her small apartment, Zara pored over publicly available merger details online, her linguistic expertise piecing together the gaps. "They need someone who understands nuances," she murmured. Practicing phrases in French and English, sleep eluded her. Inner turmoil churning, anger at the prejudice, fear of more backlash, but a deep-seated dignity refusing to break. The next morning, chaos reigned at Nihon Tech. Partners had arrived early, unannounced, demanding an immediate meeting. Tanaka's office buzzed with panic. Interpreters were delayed in traffic. Zara, starting her shift, felt the tension like electricity. As she cleaned nearby, a spill in the boardroom called her in. Deliberate again, coffee grounds strewn by stressed aides. "Clean it fast," one barked, shoving her cart aside. The mockery resumed. "Hurry, before the foreigners see our mess." But through the open door, she saw the partners, the American exec pacing, the French one gesturing animatedly, their words a babble Tanaka couldn't navigate. Tanaka's eyes met hers across the room, desperate, cornered. "We need help now," he shouted to his team. Zara stepped forward, heart hammering, ignoring the aide's glares. "Let me," she said firmly. The room fell silent as she addressed the French partner in flawless Parisian French. "Bonjour, permettez-moi de clarifier les termes du brevet." Shock rippled through the group, Tanaka's jaw dropping, the aides freezing. Had she just crossed the line, or saved them all? The guard's grip loosened only after they'd hauled Zara fully into the hallway, the boardroom door clicking shut with finality behind them. She rubbed her sore arm, the bruises from their fingers already blooming under her skin like dark shadows. The partners' confused murmurs filtered through the wood. "What's happening?" In accented English, "This is chaos," in French. But Tanaka's authoritative bark drowned them out, trying to regain control. Zara leaned against the wall, her breath coming in shallow gasps, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing like angry bees in her ears. How had it come to this? Offering salvation, only to be treated like a criminal. The humiliation burned fresh, a public spectacle in front of international guests, her uniform now disheveled, a symbol of her supposed inferiority. Tears threatened again, but she blinked them back, drawing on that inner reservoir of strength she'd built over years of adversity. Back in her mind, the day's earlier torments replayed in vivid color, each one a layer in this escalating nightmare. That morning, before the partners' surprise arrival, the bullying had started anew with relentless precision. As Zara clocked in, her locker, tucked in the basement maintenance room, had been vandalized. Someone had scrawled "Go home, monkey" in permanent marker across the door, the words jagged and hateful. She stared at it, her stomach twisting, the metallic scent of the ink mixing with the musty air of the room. Who had done it? It could be anyone. Mr. Nakamura, the secretaries, even the engineers. No cameras down here, no accountability. She wiped it off as best she could with a rag, her hands shaking, but the faint outline remained, a ghostly reminder. Upstairs, during her first round of cleaning, the cafeteria incident had unfolded with cruel familiarity. A table of mid-level staff, finishing their breakfast, deliberately flipped a tray of miso soup onto the floor as she approached. The hot liquid splashed, soaking her pants legs, the salty steam rising to sting her eyes. "Clean it up quick, before it attracts rats like you," one woman jeered, her laughter sharp and echoing. Zara knelt, the soup's warmth seeping through to her skin, a mild burn that paled compared to the emotional scorch. Around her, diners paused their meals to watch, some joining in with whispers. "She's so slow. Must be her nature." One man even tossed a napkin at her head, the paper fluttering like a mocking flag. "Here, use this, foreigner." The public degradation drew a crowd, phones discreetly recording, turning her into unwitting entertainment. She finished the task in silence, her knees aching against the hard tile, but inside, rage simmered. How much more could she take? Escaping to the supply closet for a moment's reprieve, Zara pressed her forehead against the cool metal shelves, breathing deeply. The scent of bleach and polish enveloped her, a strange comfort in its familiarity. Here, alone, she allowed herself to reflect, flashes of her former life intruding like sunlight through cracks. She remembered a UN conference in Paris where her flawless French had diffused a heated debate between delegates, earning applause and respect. Or in Dubai, negotiating in Arabic to secure aid agreements, her words weaving alliances. 9 languages, each a tool she'd honed through rigorous study and real-world immersion. Her PhD thesis on cross-cultural linguistics had been praised in academic circles, but now, reduced to this, scrubbing floors while hiding her brilliance. "Why stay?" she whispered to the empty room. The answer was simple: survival, and a stubborn hope that one day someone would see her true value. But hope felt distant as the afternoon wore on. Assigned to the executive lounge, a plush space with leather couches and city views, Zara encountered Ms. Hayashi again. The HR director, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, spotted her and snapped her fingers. "Zara, wait outside while I meet with the team. And don't eavesdrop this time." The accusation stung, implying she was untrustworthy. Zara waited in the hall for over an hour, her cart blocking no one's path, but drawing glares nonetheless. When Hayashi emerged, she tripped over a mop handle, sending it clattering. "Clumsy idiot!" she hissed, kicking the mop toward Zara's feet. The physical jab wasn't hard, but the intent was clear, a symbolic attack to assert dominance. Colleagues passing by chuckled, one muttering, "She deserves it, always in the way." The tension ratcheted up as news of the partners' early arrival spread like wildfire. Offices hummed with frantic activity, phones ringing, printers whirring, aides rushing with documents. Zara, tasked with last-minute touch-ups in the boardroom antechamber, caught fragments of the panic. "Tanaka-san's English isn't cutting it. The French clauses are a mess. We need an interpreter now." Her heart quickened. This was her domain. If only they'd listen. But when she ventured a quiet suggestion to an aide, "I could assist with translation," the response was swift contempt. "Mind your business, cleaner. Stick to dirt." He shoved past her, shoulder checking her into the wall, the impact jarring her elbow. Pain flared, but worse was the dismissal, reducing her expertise to nothing. Inner turmoil peaked as Zara nursed her injuries in a quiet corner, the building's air conditioning humming coldly around her. Fear gnawed at her. What if speaking up cost her job? Anger boiled too, at the systemic blindness that kept talents like hers hidden. But dignity won out. She couldn't let the deal collapse, not when she held the key. A brief moment of solidarity came from an unexpected source. A junior intern, a young woman new to the company, slipped her a bottle of water during a break. "I saw what they did earlier. It's not right," she whispered, her eyes sympathetic. It was a small gesture, but it fueled Zara's resolve, a reminder that change could start with one ally. As the meeting dragged on without her, Zara lingered nearby, her cart a camouflage. Through the cracked door, she glimpsed the chaos. Tanaka sweating, gesturing wildly, the American partner frowning, arms crossed, the French one tapping impatiently. Misunderstandings piled up, technical terms lost, cultural faux pas amplifying the rift. "We can't proceed like this," the American declared. Tanaka's face paled, the billion-dollar dream slipping away. Zara's hands clenched the mop handle. This was the cliffhanger moment, the tension at its zenith. Would she force her way back in? Or would prejudice seal the company's fate? Pushed to her limit, Zara straightened her uniform, ignoring the ache in her limbs. She knocked once more, bolder this time. The door opened to stunned faces. "Give me 1 minute to prove it," she said, her tone unyielding. Tanaka hesitated, doubt warring with desperation. The guards hovered, ready to intervene again, but the partners' curious gazes held them back. In that suspended breath, the twist beckoned. Zara's hidden power on the verge of revelation, the room poised for transformation. The silence in the boardroom stretched like a taut wire. Every eye locked on Zara as she stood there, her voice still echoing from the flawless French she'd just spoken. The French partner, a polished woman in her 50s named Madame Laurent, blinked in surprise, her impatient tapping ceasing as the American exec, Mr. Reynolds, leaned forward with raised eyebrows. "Wait, you understood that perfectly?" Reynolds asked in English, his tone shifting from frustration to curiosity. Zara nodded calmly, switching seamlessly to English. "Yes, sir. The patent terms. She's concerned about the exclusivity clause overlapping with your EU regulations. Allow me to clarify for Mr. Tanaka." She turned to the CEO, translating into precise, professional Japanese, her words flowing with the authority of someone who'd navigated global summits, not scrubbed floors. Tanaka's face was a mask of conflicting emotions, desperation warring with ingrained prejudice. His hands clenched at his sides, the guards still hovering like shadows, ready to drag her out again. "This is preposterous," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. The room's atmosphere crackled. Aides whispered furiously, one clutching a tablet with untranslated documents. Madame Laurent spoke again, her French rapid and technical, delving into intellectual property safeguards. Zara didn't hesitate. She interpreted on the fly, adding subtle cultural notes. In French business culture, this phrasing implies partnership equality, not dominance. We should respond with respect to their heritage in innovation. Reynolds nodded vigorously, impressed. "She's right. That's exactly what we've been missing." The American followed up with questions on market penetration, and Zara handled it effortlessly. Her 9 languages, a hidden arsenal now unleashed. As the minutes ticked by, the twist fully unfurled. Tanaka, cornered by the partner's growing approval, finally waved off the guards with a reluctant hand. "Continue," he grated out, sinking into his chair. Zara stepped fully into the light, her uniform suddenly seeming irrelevant amid the high-stakes dialogue. But she didn't stop at translation. She negotiated, drawing on her deep knowledge. "If we adjust the clause to include joint R&D credits," she suggested in English, then French, "it honors both sides' contributions." The partners exchanged glances, warming to the idea. Reynolds chuckled. "Where have you been hiding this talent?" It was the opening Zara had waited for. With quiet dignity, she met Tanaka's gaze. "I've been right here, sir, cleaning your offices. But before this, I was a diplomat for the United Nations, with a PhD in linguistics from Georgetown. I've mediated international treaties in Arabic, Spanish, German, 9 languages total. Budget cuts forced me into this role, but my skills never left." The revelation landed like a thunderclap. Tanaka's eyes widened, color draining from his face as the pieces clicked. The janitor he'd dismissed, shoved aside, was more qualified than half his executive team. Aides gasped. One dropped her notepad. Madame Laurent smiled approvingly. "Incroyable! You've just saved this discussion." Reynolds slapped the table. "Hell, you've saved the deal!" Zara's heart swelled, not with vengeance, but with reclaimed pride. The physical aches from the guards' rough handling faded in that moment, replaced by a surge of empowerment. She'd turned their doubt into awe, her hidden power bursting forth like sunlight after a storm. With the barriers crumbling, the negotiation accelerated. Zara took a seat at the table, uninvited but undeniable, guiding the conversation with expert precision. She welcomed the partners formally in their native tongues, easing tensions with cultural insights. A nod to French innovation history for Laurent, a reference to American entrepreneurial spirit for Reynolds. Technical hurdles melted away as she clarified patent overlaps in Mandarin, drawing from similar Asian deals she'd handled, then switched to Portuguese for a sidebar on global supply chains. Tanaka watched in stunned silence, his earlier contempt morphing into reluctant admiration. How did we miss this? He whispered to an aide, who could only shrug. The deal solidified before their eyes. A $1 billion merger that would fuse Nihon Tech's hardware with Western software prowess, creating jobs and innovation across continents. Signatures flew across digital pads, handshakes exchanged. But as the formalities wrapped, the emotional payoff began. Reynolds pulled Zara aside, his voice warm. "Young lady, or should I say Dr. Thompson, you're a force. If you ever want a job stateside." Laurent joined, offering a business card with both hands in respectful Japanese style. "Votre expertise est rare. We'd be honored to collaborate." Their praise washed over her like balm, healing the wounds of months of mockery. Tanaka, however, couldn't avoid the reckoning. As the partners prepared to leave, he approached Zara haltingly, his posture humbled. The room quieted, aides shifting uncomfortably. "Zara-san," he began, using the honorific with genuine respect for the first time. I was wrong. Terribly wrong. Your talents, your dignity in the face of our blindness, have saved this company." His voice cracked slightly, eyes dropping to the floor. "The way you've been treated, the insults, the physical mistreatment, it's unforgivable. I apologize, from the bottom of my heart." Zara met his gaze steadily, her own eyes misty but strong. "Apologies are a start, sir, but actions matter more." He nodded, turning to the gathered staff. "Effective immediately, Zara Thompson is promoted to Vice President of International Relations, salary tripled with equity shares, and will implement mandatory diversity training, starting with investigations into the bullying." The aides blanched. Whispers turned to gasps. Mr. Nakamura, lurking in the corner, went pale as Tanaka fixed him with a stern look. "Those responsible for the harassment, demotions or terminations if warranted. This ends now." Ms. Hayashi stammered an apology, her earlier kicks and snaps now haunting her. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Zara shook her head gently. "You didn't see. That's the problem." One by one, the tormentors faced consequences. The engineers reassigned, the secretaries reprimanded. Raoul, the kind guard, was commended. The junior intern who'd offered water beamed from the sidelines. Zara's inner turmoil, the fear, the rage, dissolved into quiet triumph. She'd reclaimed her dignity, not through revenge, but through undeniable excellence. As the partners departed with promises of future collaborations, the boardroom emptied, leaving Zara and Tanaka alone for a moment. He extended a hand, genuine this time. "Thank you. Truly." She shook it firmly. "Build a better company, sir. One where talent shines, no matter the uniform." Outside, the Tokyo skyline sparkled, a metaphor for the hope now blooming within her. In the days that followed, Nihon Tech transformed. Diversity workshops rolled out, with Zara leading sessions on cultural sensitivity, her story a powerful case study. Colleagues who'd once mocked her now approached with tentative respect, some with heartfelt apologies, others with awkward nods. The cafeteria buzzed with new inclusivity. Her jollof rice finally shared and savored. Whispers shifted from slurs to admiration. "Did you hear? She's a UN veteran." The physical scars faded, the bruises, the burns, but the emotional healing came slower, in quiet moments alone, where Zara allowed herself to cry for the pain endured, then smile for the victory won. Her new office overlooked the city, a far cry from the basement locker. Calls poured in. UN contacts congratulating her resurgence, media requests for interviews on hidden talents in the workforce. Zara wired extra money home, her voice light as she told her family, "Things are changing, finally." The merger's success made headlines, crediting an unlikely hero, but Zara downplayed it, focusing on the bigger picture: resilience in the face of injustice. 6 months later, Zara stood at a company podium, addressing a packed auditorium for the annual summit. Her suit was tailored, her natural coils free and proud. "I was invisible once," she said, her voice steady and empathetic. "Pushed down by prejudice, locked away, literally and figuratively. But strength isn't in titles or appearances. It's in rising, in using your gifts despite the barriers." The audience, former bullies included, applauded, some with tears. Tanaka, from the front row, nodded solemnly, his transformation evident in the new policies he'd championed. Outside work, Zara found solace in small joys. Walks in Tokyo parks, where cherry blossoms reminded her of renewal. Calls with old UN colleagues, reigniting passions, even mentoring the junior intern, passing on wisdom. The moral unfolded naturally through her journey. Resilience turns humiliation into empowerment. Dignity demands respect, and true equality sees beyond skin or status. No lectures needed. The story spoke for itself. As she wrapped up her speech, Zara looked out at the faces, hope kindling in her chest. "We've all got hidden depths. Let's uncover them, in ourselves and others." The applause thundered, a chorus of change. Friends, if Zara's story moved you, remember, strength often hides in the shadows, waiting for its moment. Have you faced something similar? Share in the comments below. Your thoughts mean the world. If this inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of triumph over adversity. Until next time, keep rising. But the ripple effects extended far beyond Nihon Tech. News of the janitor who saved a billion-dollar deal spread across social media and business journals, sparking global conversations on workplace discrimination and untapped talent. Zara became a reluctant icon, fielding invitations to speak at conferences in New York and Paris, full circle from her UN days. She accepted selectively, using platforms to advocate for marginalized workers. Look closer at the help around you. They might just hold the key to your success. Back at the company, transformations deepened. Tanaka established a Hidden Talents initiative, screening employees for overlooked skills, leading to promotions for several, including Raoul to security chief. The bullies? Some reformed, attending therapy sessions. Others left quietly, their absence a breath of fresh air. Zara's team grew, diverse hires bringing new energy. One evening, over tea with the junior intern, now her assistant, she reflected, "Pain shaped me, but it didn't define me." The young woman nodded, inspired. "You've changed everything here." Personally, Zara healed through connection. Reconnecting with her ex-husband via video call, she shared her story without bitterness. "I found my way back." Her family's pride beamed through the screen, her niece declaring, "Auntie, you're my hero." In quiet Tokyo nights, Zara journaled, processing the traumas, the lock-ins that had trapped her body and spirit, the shoves that had tested her resolve. Each entry ended with gratitude, for resilience, for the twist that turned tables. The moral crystallized in everyday acts, a colleague offering help with her cart, an executive seeking her advice on cross-cultural emails. Equality wasn't just policy, it was practice. Zara's hopeful ending wasn't perfect. Prejudices lingered in whispers, but the tide had turned. She walked taller, her dignity a shield, her talents a sword. And so, dear viewers, let Zara's journey remind us, justice comes when we least expect it, often from those we've overlooked. Resilience isn't about enduring silently, it's about speaking up, revealing your light. If this resonates, drop a comment. What's your story of hidden strength? Like if you're inspired, subscribe for more empowering narratives. Together, we can build a world where everyone shines.